Okay, revision video number 3. In this one, we're looking at a comparison between the Senate and the House of Lords, the two second chambers, which could easily be a question. It seems like an obvious answer, but in fact, what you've got to be able to is be able to break this down effectively. So what do we do first of all? Well, when starting to answer the question, you've got to think about what is the role of a second chamber. You've got to think about the key terminology, and again, the three criteria by which you want to compare. So, what's the role of the second chamber, which could be used there? Well, the second chamber is part of a bicameral system, often considered a reviewing chamber, a check on the legislative agenda, or another chamber as a check on the government. So that's the kind of role that it would play. In terms of the key terminology that you would want to put forward, well, certainly in the US, you're talking about the size and composition of the US Senate, and the fact there are key terminology that's linked to the Senate, such as the filibuster, such as the iron triangles, and other things that we could have talked about certainly in the legislative process. In terms of the UK, we're talking about the nature of the peerages that exist there, the rest of the composition, and some of the role that it plays in regards to legislation, such as the Salisbury Doctrine and the Parliament Acts. So, so what are the areas I want to compare? Well, fundamentally, you're looking at the functions, aren't you? Their capacity to represent, the provision of checks on the executive, and their role within the legislative process. The debate is clearly that the UK House of Lords has been an ongoing debate for a while in terms of its composition, whether its powers are appropriate. And this clearly compares to the US, where the Senate is often considered the more significant chamber, both in terms of the powers that it holds and its prestige. The contrast couldn't be more stark. But what you want to do is you want to look at the complexity of that particular question. So first of all, we talk about the US Senate being a significantly representative chamber in the United States, and certainly that would be the case. As an elected chamber every 6 years, it compares directly or contrasts directly to the House of Lords, which is there through independent commission. The Constitution of the US restricts any link between the executive and the Senate, as shown by Obama having to resign his seat to become the president. That link can exist with the House of Lords and the executive, as many times you find that they are cabinet ministers. Secondly, as an elected chamber of the Senate, they can claim a mandate. This complements the House of Representatives because they look after the people, or the House of Lords can't claim any mandate at all and has a range of composition of randoms, essentially, of life peers, still some hereditary peers and bishops. However, it can be argued, and this is the crucial complexity point, where there is a level of expertise that the Lords provides, which is different representation to that we would find in the United States. And the fact that they're not professional politicians necessarily, certainly crossbenchers, there isn't the same level of partisanship. However, your evaluation would have to say that yes, the US Senate is a significantly more representative chamber due to its democratic mandate. Second function, we're now saying the US Senate provides additional checks on the government. And the Senate has got constitutional checks and balances, which makes it very significant in the political system. The way in which it has to approve or ratify presidential nominations for cabinet, for the Supreme Court. You compare that to the Prime Minister's capacity to change their executive. There are no such limitations in the Lords in regards to that because of the prerogative powers the Prime Minister enjoys. The Senate also provides restrictions in terms of presidential treaties and has a key role in terms of presidential impeachment, as shown recently by Clinton and Trump. And this compares to the Lords, which has absolutely no role in regards to the confidence vote that a serving government would have to face in the House of Commons. However, you would want to say that the House of Lords does hold the government to account at times, and they do that through their select committee work. And this level of expertise is very much in line with the standing committees you would find in the Senate. So there's one point of comparison you can put forward there. However, if you're talking in terms of evaluation, you'd have to talk about the constitutional position of the Senate. A much greater level of power to challenge the executive, well beyond that enjoyed by the Lords. Okay, third point. And now we're looking at the legislative function. The Senate has a significant role in making laws, the equivalent of the House of Representatives in terms of the introduction of bills, the scrutiny of an amendment of bills, the capacity to overturn a veto. You compare this to the Lords, whose real legislative power was diminished by the Parliament Acts to that of delay. Senators can delay legislation through filibuster and requiring a cloture motion of 60 votes. The Lords can be restricted in the time it has to consider bills, though the government can't guarantee a majority, which means that there is a slight similarity there. Senate amendments and earmarks can be much more influential than Lords amendments, certainly, and that would be a significant difference. There's some good examples there when we looked at Obamacare of senators who put their own pork into that particular piece of legislation for their states. However, the Lords does have some influence over this. The government can be willing to compromise and not willing necessarily to face delays, and they may listen to the Lords when they have challenges, certainly over legislation based around constitutional changes and the rights of individuals. Evaluation. Well, the constitutional position again, and the fact that it is an equivalent to the House in terms of making legislation, is a complete contrast to that of the Lords, where the primacy exists with the Commons. So overall, it would seem that the Senate does have a significantly more important chamber. Although you would say that the Lords has a key role in the bicameral system as being a review on the Commons and the executive, the Commons' clear primacy is significant. The representation and function of the Senate allows them to have the powers that they deserve, unless there was a reform of the House of Lords to have that level of representation. It's always going to be much less significant than the US Senate. Okay, hope that was useful. Thank you.